Yes, we can start our meeting, Brother Kwame. Recordings in progress.
Okay, right. So, yes. Dear esteemed guests, fellow Pan-Africanists, and all participants, on behalf of the Consensusism Study Group, I warmly welcome you to today's discussion on strengthening the African Union. As we gather to explore the future of our continent, we are reminded of the profound words, forward ever, backwards never. Today, we embark on a critical conversation about African Union's role in unifying, liberating, and developing Africa. Some of our members, participants, or esteemed guests may disagree and that the AU has even such a role, or whether the AU can even play that role. So we will delve into recent developments, such as the AU reforms meeting in Kenya, the ambitious goals of Agenda 2063, and the ongoing efforts to silence the guns across Africa. We'll also examine the AU's response to conflicts in regions like the DRC and Sudan, and discuss the upcoming AU elections and the AU Commission elections and their implications for the future of the African Union. Brothers and sisters, as we navigate these discussions, we will revisit Kwame Nkrumah's vision for a united Africa and explore new initiatives like the Alliance of Sahel States. We will also ponder radical questions about the AU's current form and the reforms needed to achieve the Pan-African dream of a totally liberated, united, and developed Africa. So thank you for joining us on this important journey. Your insights and contributions are invaluable as we strive to build a brighter future for our continent, indeed, our homeland, Africa. Let us proceed with the conviction that together we can shape a stronger, more resilient Africa for generations to come. Forward ever, backward never, Pan-African regards. So I'd like to acknowledge those here. Brother Raspala, General Nunaki, Sister Chizomo, Brother Windhoek, Brother The King, and our own Brother Pigeon, who is, as you know, the head of administration for us. So welcome, everyone. We shall proceed as with the guidance of Brother Pigeon on how today would evolve. So, Brother Pigeon, thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Kwame, and welcome to you all, comrades. As we do appreciate your presence, it's now for granted. We actually see as your contribution towards the Pan-African struggle, you accepting to spend your minutes and hours every week to be part of this conversation is very important and is a contribution. So find it worth enough that you're doing something as a contribution to the Pan-African struggle. We will actually delve on the recent. We are looking at how we can strengthen the AU authority to actually implement its purpose and its role. So we'll start with President Ruto's recent speech, because he's now the new head of institutional reforms, to champion institutional reforms in AU. He took over from, of course, Paul Kagame. And you are aware there are also reforms and proposals that were passed by or put forth by the outgoing AUC chairperson that has never been implemented. And there's a new AUC chairperson coming in. So we'll also know whether is that position having any relevance to us or what's the implication. And as has been said, we'll also look at the failure of some of the aspiration and commitment to tell us where is the AU moving forward to. I know others think that AU shouldn't or is irrelevant or obsolete, but that's the conversation we'll open up. So permit me to start with this President Ruto's speech. This speech was given 5 days ago. In presence of this speech, there was also the President of Ghana was here, and they were discussing some proposals in regards to the AUC preposition. So I'll also share some in regards to that. But yes, let me share this.
Reforms. Your presence here And it is my profound honor that Your Excellencies have graciously accepted my invitation to participate in this extended Bureau retreat on Africa Union institutional reforms. Your presence here reaffirms the unity of purpose that binds us together as we chart the course for Africa's future. I have convened this retreat as the champion of the Africa Union institutional reforms following the assignment Your Excellencies gave me during the 37th Assembly of Heads of State and Government in Addis last year. This retreat is an opportunity to pause, reflect, and refocus our collective energies towards an African Union that is robust, efficient, and most importantly, fit for purpose. As Your Excellencies will recall, I was tasked with the role of re-energizing the reform process by ensuring the outstanding reform priorities are concluded as soon as is practicable. These reform priorities include the restructuring of the remaining Africa Union organs, institutions, and offices, as well as the study on the division of labor between the Africa Union, regional economic blocs, and states. I was also tasked with reporting on the progress of reform implementation during the forthcoming ordinary session of the Assembly in February next month. Today, we stand at a crossroads, a juncture marked by complex geopolitical developments, economic challenges, and an unprecedented social transformation. Yet within these challenges lie unparalleled opportunities that have the possibility to unlock the full potential of our continent through initiatives such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and other continental interventions. Our task here is to harness these opportunities, galvanize political will, and renew our collective commitment to a prosperous Africa. Your Excellencies, the Africa Union is built upon the noble foundation of liberation. Liberation from colonialism and apartheid, from oppression, and from dependency. The transformation from the Organization of African Unity to the Africa Union was not a departure from this mission. Rather, it was an evolution, a shift towards addressing contemporary challenges and seizing new opportunities. The Africa Union remains firmly in the business of liberation. Liberation from poverty, conflict, and underdevelopment, from unfair global trading practices, and from exclusion in the global decision-making metrics. To achieve this, our institutional architecture must be strengthened, streamlined, and strategically aligned with our vision. Since my appointment as champion of AU institutional reforms, I have engaged extensively and strategically with key Africa Union stakeholders to advance the reform agenda. These engagements include meeting with the Africa Union Commission leadership, led by the Chair, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, whose insights and ideas have formed an immense part of my presentation. The Africa Union Institutional Reforms Unit Secretariat, led by Professor Pierre Mukoko, and in a retreat that I convened in Naivasha, Kenya, on reforms that brought several actors together. Additionally, I have held consultative meetings with the Permanent Representatives Committee in Addis Ababa, the leadership of the Pan-African Parliament, led by Chief Fortune Charumbira, as well as Dr. Donald Kaberuka, the AU representative for financing the Union, here in Nairobi. I wish to thank my dear brother, His Excellency Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda, for the outstanding work he did as the pioneer champion of the AU institutional reforms. I commend him for his dedication and achievements in advancing the reform agenda of our organization. Excellencies, the road ahead demands bold leadership and unwavering commitment. Given that the implementation of the reform priorities is a political process, it is my view that execution should continue to be guided at the level of heads of state and government. I shall therefore be proposing to recommend to the Assembly, of course with your concurrence, the formation of a committee of heads of state and government of the African Union on AU reform to oversee this process. This will ensure sustained momentum, strategic oversight, and collective ownership of the reform process. I invite this August gathering to provide guidance on the appropriate formula for representation in the committee. To give focused attention to AU reform momentum, I'm also requesting that we consider the possibility of convening an extraordinary summit of heads of state and government later this year. Ladies and gentlemen, to realize the objective of the Africa we want as outlined in Agenda 2063, we must reinvigorate our political resolve to embrace African Union reforms, institutional reforms. These reforms are fundamental to transforming the African Union into a robust institution capable of securing a progressive and united Africa. A prosperous, integrated, and globally competitive Africa is within our reach, but only if we act with urgency, unity, and single-minded resolve. Your Excellencies, the continent is facing unprecedented challenges regarding peace and security. Conflict continues to rob Africa of its potential, costing the continent an estimated $18 billion annually and displacing millions of people. Africa today is home to 35 million internally displaced persons, 8.9 million refugees, 1.1 million asylum seekers, and 1 million stateless people. Between April and June 2024 alone, a total of 1,000 terrorism incidences were recorded across Africa, resulting in 4,818 deaths. This is an existential moment for our continent. The African Union security architecture, in its current configuration, is incapable of addressing these complex dynamics and challenges, and there is an urgent need for immediate revitalization of the peace and security architecture. The African Union's presence in regional hotspots remains weak, fragmented, and under-resourced. The African Union's network of special envoys and high representatives is underutilized and urgently needs refreshing in certain cases. As peace is the key precondition for development, it follows, Excellencies, that our continent's developmental goals are being hindered by these destabilizing forces. Strengthening the performance and effectiveness of African Union peace support operation is a strategic imperative given the volatile, complex, and interconnected nature of threats to collective peace and security. The fight against terrorism on our continent remains fragmented, reactive, poorly resourced, and uncoordinated. Developing, therefore, a comprehensive plan of action for countering terrorism in Africa as foreseen by the 2022 Malabo Declaration, cannot wait any longer. I urge you, my esteemed colleagues, to reflect deeply on how we can further fortify our peace and security architecture. One pertinent proposal is to convene a high-level panel of Africans or professionals, perhaps 3 experts, to conduct a comprehensive review of our AU peace and security framework. This panel would also assess the feasibility of implementing the UN Security Council Resolution 2719, which offers a viable pathway for financing AU-led, UN-mandated peace support operations through assessed contributions. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is regrettable that despite the Assembly's decision to limit the summit agenda to 3 strategic items as outlined in Decision 635, the agenda continues to remain excessively complex and time-consuming. This complexity continues to hamper the efficiency and effectiveness of our deliberations at the summit. To streamline the Assembly's proceedings, I will be recommending for your consideration a revised format that includes a high-level opening session followed by a dedicated session for national statements by heads of state and government focused exclusively on the 3 agenda items. Each one of us will be allocated between 7 and 10 minutes to address any of the items, ensuring precision and focus. At the close of the Assembly session, the Chairperson of the Union and Chairperson of the Commission will issue a communiqué that encapsulates the deliberations and outcomes of the summit. In addition, I shall propose that the AU Commission be mandated to publish the Assembly and Executive Council decisions within 7 days of the summit's conclusion, ensuring transparency and prompt dissemination of resolutions. Excellencies, dear colleagues, Africa possesses the possibility and the capabilities and resources to finance herself sustainably and adequately. The revitalization of the Africa Union Peace Fund has been a commendable step forward, but we must consolidate these gains and set even more ambitious financing targets. A higher endowment for the Peace Fund is essential. In achieving this, domestic resource mobilization and strategic partnerships will play a pivotal role, all the while upholding the fundamental principles of African ownership and African leadership. Since 2020, the Africa Union budget has remained stagnant despite the increasing scope of our mandates and the creation of new institutions. Our ambitions must be matched by a predictable, sustainable, and accountable financial framework. I therefore propose for your consideration again the convening of an extraordinary session of Executive Council with the participation of Ministers of Finance to explore the present and present to the Assembly viable options for achieving the Johannesburg financing target within the next 5 years. Additionally, I recommend that the Assembly mandate the Africa Union High Representative on Financing the Union, Dr. Donald Kaberuka, to develop a concept note and a comprehensive report on practical options to achieve these targets. And I'm happy that Dr. Kaberuka is in our midst. Distinguished colleagues, the operationalization of the Court of Justice of the Africa Union remains a critical priority that must be pursued with renewed vigor. This judicial body is essential in providing a legal mechanism for the resolution of disputes between African states, as well as between the Africa Union and its various entities. Additionally, the court will serve as a court of appeal of decisions of the African Union Administrative Tribunal, thereby enhancing the credibility and efficacy of our continental legal framework. Although the protocol of the Court of Justice of the African Union came into force in July 2009, its implementation was deferred to facilitate the merger with the African Court on Human and People's Rights and to expand its mandate to include an international crimes chamber. It is now imperative that we move forward decisively in operationalizing this vital institution, and I will be presenting a resolution to the Assembly for the immediate appointment of judges to this court. In addition, the revitalization of the Pan-African Parliament is a matter that demands our collective focus and commitment. During a recent consultative meeting in Nairobi with the leadership of the Pan-African Parliament, we reaffirmed the need for a high-level advocacy to secure the ratification of the Malabo Protocol by an additional 13 members, thereby reaching the required threshold of 28 ratifications. As of now, only 15 countries have ratified the protocol, which seeks to empower the Pan-African Parliament with permanent membership and legislative authority to formulate model laws that will shape the governance of our continent. As champion of the African Union reforms, I call upon Your Excellencies to rally behind this effort and accelerate the ratification process. As we embark on our consultations today, I wish you all fruitful deliberations. Let us work together towards producing empowering and impactful outcomes that will drive the reform process forward and position our union for greater achievement. Again, to all of you, welcome to Nairobi.
Yes, Brother Kwame, I think we can, you can share the next part where people can respond to this maybe in 20 or 15 minutes, then I'll go back to Nkrumah also speech on the same AU. Brother Kwame.
Yeah, Brother Pigeon, I was thinking we should hear Nkrumah.
Okay.
Yeah, next. And at least because Ruto is talking about what is happening today in the world today, and Nkrumah made some suggestions far back as 1963 or thereabouts. So I think it's right that we hear what Nkrumah said, and then we put Ruto's agenda suggestions within that context. Yeah? Yes?
Okay, give me just a minute as I'm trying to look for Nkrumah's speech as well. I'll go to Nkrumah's speech than his text so that we can also hear from Nkrumah's speech himself.
Yes, fine. And then you wanted also as part of today to, was it the agenda? You mentioned 4 items for today. We've seen one. The second was Nkrumah's speech. What was the third? So, brothers and sisters, Brother Fiji is looking for Nkrumah's speech, so he can share that with us, so we can put in context what Ruto said, in line with the historical development.
We are traders. It's in our DNA to make bold decisions when everything is on the line.
What are we waiting for? What are we looking for? Are we looking for mere charters conceived in the light of the United Nations example? A type of United Nations organization whose decisions are framed on the basis of resolutions that in our experience have sometimes been ignored by member states, where groupings are formed and pressure developed in accordance with the interests of the groups concerned? Or is it intended that Africa should be turned into a loose organization of states on the model of the Organization of the American States, in which the weaker states within it can be at the mercy of the stronger or more powerful ones, politically and economically, and all at the mercy of some powerful outside nation or group of nations. Your Excellencies, is this the kind of association we want for ourselves? In the United Africa we all speak of with such feeling and emotion? Your Excellencies, permit me to ask, is this the kind of framework we desire for a united Africa? An arrangement which in future would permit Ghana or Nigeria or the Sudan or Liberia or Egypt or Ethiopia, for example, to use pressure with either superior economic or political influence gives to decide the flow and direction of trade, say from Burundi or Togo or Nyasaland to Mozambique and Madagascar. We all want a united Africa. United not only in our concept of what unity connotes, but united in our common desire to move forward together in dealing with all the problems that can best be solved only on a continental basis. Sir, when the first Congress of the United States met many years ago at Philadelphia, one of the delegates sounded the first chord of unity by declaring that they had met in a state of nature. In other words, they were not in Philadelphia as Virginians or Pennsylvanians, but simply as Americans. This reference to themselves as Americans was in those days a new and strange experience. But may I dare to assert, equally on this occasion, Your Excellencies, that we meet here today not as Ghanaians, Guineans, Egyptians, Algerians, Moroccans, Malians, Liberians, Congolese, or Nigerians, but as Africans. Africans united in our resolve to remain here until we have agreed on the basic principles of a new compact of unity among ourselves, with guarantees for us and our future, a new arrangement for continental government. If we succeed in establishing a new set of principles as the basis of a new charter or statute for the establishment of a continental unit of Africa and the creation of social and political progress for our people, then, in my view, this conference should mark the end of our various groupings and regional blocs. But if we fail and let this grand and historic opportunity slip by, then we shall give way to greater dissension and division among us, for which the people, the masses of the people of Africa, will never forgive us. And the popular and progressive forces and movements within Africa will condemn us surely. I'm sure, therefore, that we shall not fail them. Your Excellencies, I have spoken at length because it is necessary for us all to explain not only to one another present here, but also to our people who have instructed us the fate and destiny of the African continent. We must therefore not leave this place until we have set up an effective machinery for achieving African unity. To this end, I now propose for your consideration the following. Your Excellencies, a declaration of principles uniting and binding us together, and to which we must all faithfully and loyally adhere, and laying the foundation of unity should be set down. And there should also be a formal declaration that all the independent African states here and now agree to the establishment of a Union of African States. A second, an urgent step for the realization of the unification of Africa. An All-Africa Committee of Foreign Ministers be set up now, and that before we rise from this conference, a date should be fixed for them to meet. This committee should establish, on behalf of the heads of our governments, a permanent body of officials and experts to work out a machinery for the Union Government of Africa. This body of officials and experts should be made up of one or two of the best brains from each of the independent African states. The various charters of the existing groupings and other relevant documents will also be submitted to this official experts, working under the hegemony of a committee of the foreign ministers. And a presidium consisting of the heads of government of the independent African states should be called upon to meet and adopt a constitution and other recommendations which will launch the government of Africa. We must also decide on a location where this body of officials and experts will work as the new headquarters or capital of our union government. Some central place in Africa might be the first suggestion. From my view, either at Bangui in the Central African Republic or in Libreville in the Congo. All the officials that will go there, and we shall support their work. My colleagues may have other proposals. The Committee of Foreign Ministers, officials and experts should be empowered, but we have no time, to establish, one, a commission to frame a constitution for the Union Government of African States. Two,
Add text anywhere in the document. Use the eraser tool to erase anything on the form.
a commission to work out a continent-wide plan for a united or common economic and industrial program for Africa. This plan should include for setting up a common market for Africa, an African currency, African monetary zone, an African central bank, a continental communication system. Third, a commission to draw up details for common foreign policy and diplomacy. A commission to produce plans for a common system of defense. A commission to make proposals for a common African citizenship. These commissions will report to the Committee of Foreign Ministers, who should in turn submit within 6 months of the conference their recommendation to the Presidium. The Presidium meeting in conference at the Union headquarters, whether it's at Bangui or Libreville, will consider and approve the recommendations of the Committee of Foreign Ministers in order to provide funds immediately for the Committee of the Permanent Officials and Experts of the headquarters of the Union. I suggest that a special committee be set up now to work out a budget for this. Your Excellencies, with these steps, I submit we shall be irrevocably committed to the road which will bring us to a union government of Africa. Only a united Africa with central political direction can successfully give effective material and moral support to our freedom fighters in Southern Rhodesia, Angola, Mozambique, Southwest Africa, Bechuanaland, Swaziland, Basutoland, Portuguese Guinea, etc., and of course South Africa. All Africa must be liberated now. It is therefore imperative for us, here and now, to establish a liberation bureau for African freedom fighters. The main object of this bureau, to which all governments should subscribe, should be to accelerate emancipation of the rest of Africa, still under colonial and racialist domination and repression. It should be our joint responsibility to finance and support this bureau. On their successful attainment of independence, these territories will automatically join our Union of African States and thus strengthen the fabric of modern Africa. It's the only hope for them. Otherwise, what becomes?
Yeah, let's. The music is becoming more monotonous. There is one that hasn't got the music in it. That would have been, I think, a better one. But thanks for this one. Let's go to the next item that we should hear or read before we start the discussion. Thank you. So for those who have just joined, we've heard from President Ruto, who is in champion of the AU reforms, doing a presentation for the esteemed heads of states in Kenya about 5 days ago. Brother Pigeon has confirmed. And then we have now, so we heard his speech today. This is in 2025. Then Brother Pigeon then put on for us Nkrumah's own speech in 1963 when he put forward his proposals for the unification of Africa. So we've heard that. Brother Pigeon, what's the third one we should hear before we start the discussion? Let's remind ourselves that our topic for today is strengthening the African Union. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. We'll go to read clearly the AU Agenda 2063 as proposed, only aspirations very quickly. Then we'll go to the Alliance of Sahel.
Okay. Let's go to the third item.
Now, last week, some few days ago, we had looked at the agenda aspiration, the 2063 African Union Agenda 2063. But here we'll be looking clearly on what is actually the aspirations, which are actually 9 of them or 10 of them. Just also add more consideration to the reforms that are needed to the AU. Now, the aspiration number 1 is a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. Aspiration number 2 is on an integrated continent, politically united and based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and visions of Africa Renaissance. The third aspiration is an Africa of good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice and the rule of law. And the fourth aspiration is a peaceful and secure Africa. The fifth aspiration is an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics. The sixth aspiration is an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for the children. The seventh aspiration is Africa as a strong, united, resilient, and influential global player and partner. Those are the 7 aspirations of the African Union. Now, from there, we'll go straight to the Alliance of the Sahel.
Yep.
And basically look at the developments in the Alliance of Sahel and the reaction of other regional bodies in regards to the Alliance of Sahel. As we all know, the Alliance of Sahel have actually managed to send away the foreign military bases. They have also been able to actually launch a new passport on 14th of this year. And they have been able to form some form of confederation. So we know that Alliance of Sahel actually came up in 16th September 2023, and it brought together Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso under mutual defense agreement. The signing of the charter relating to this alliance, which bears the name Lepkato Goma, was followed by meetings and plans for initiatives that will push a new structure further towards the status for alliance, transforming it into a confederation. As an immediate or intermediate measure, the three states have already envisioned the creation of common defense force. While the initiative is commendable, it's that ambition of the potential of these three countries. Questions are being raised about the resistance of vagaries of time, especially as it is being led by transitional military forces. So basically, just to mention a few projects, is that briefly, we've had and we follow up clearly of late on what's going on in the Alliance of Sahel in regards to them controlling their military resources, sending away the foreign military bases, taking control of their mineral resources, paying off the debts like what from IMF and the rest, which was done by Burkina Faso and Niger as well. And recently, Burkina Faso have gone ahead even to remove the French language. They have removed their currencies, and they have even transformed the uniforms and even removed the judges and the lawyers' air wigs that they put on, just to try to Africanize their country. So we've been seeing a movement of the same. Of course, some countries like recently Togo also aspire to join the Alliance of Sahel. And I know Ghana said that they will also be sending away the foreign military bases. We don't know if they'll be joining. But these are the developments of Alliance of Sahel. Initially, we are aware that AU has actually suspended those states out of the AU, and ECOWAS did also suspend them out of ECOWAS. So these are developments that you're watching as they're trying to form also their confederation and their unity together. So that's just briefly in regards to Alliance of Sahel as well as an update.
Yes. So, brothers and sisters, we have now heard from all four directions. Before we proceed, let me welcome those who have joined us since the meeting began. They are as follows. So welcome, Sister Tapua. Welcome, Brother Mafoli. Welcome, Sister Ida, the brains behind our Saturday sessions. Welcome, Brother Secretary Glenroy. Welcome, Brother Carrington. Welcome, Brother Sam. Welcome, Sister Shaza. The rest of you I have mentioned. Oh, yes. Welcome, Sister Myra. So welcome to our Saturday session. We have heard from all the four sources. We heard from Ruto, who is the champion of the African Union, wants to transform the African Union. Kagame, as we understand, was the champion. Now it's Ruto. We heard from him 5 days ago, his speech to the excellencies who gathered in Nairobi. Then we heard from Nkrumah himself, the father of Pan-Africanism, who held the first Pan-African conference or congress on African soil in Accra in Ghana in 1958. Then we heard from the third source, the third item that Brother Pigeon shared with us. We heard from what the aspirations of the African Union are, and I must say they sound very, 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 very inspirational. Whether or not we can achieve it is one of the reasons why we are having this discussion. And then finally, we have read what the Alliance of Sahel States want to do. They don't want an alliance anymore. Now they want a confederation. So we need to understand what they're asking in terms of the broader vision of continental liberation, unification, development. So we'll open the floor for discussion. The time is 9 minutes to 7. So we have about 1 hour, 9 minutes, and there are about 14 of us on here today. So it looks like we should all have enough time to share our opinions, our thoughts on. So who would like to start with us? Who would like to start for us? With no hands up, I would suggest, but Brother Raspala, who that's General Nunaki, if it's okay with him to start the discussion for us, because I think it's important that we hear from Raspala because of his unique insight into African history and where we've come from, where we are going, And as we all know, he is in our WhatsApp group, the only one who predicted correctly that Trump will win. He told us why, and he has since given us a presentation on the history of Africa and the role of the Anunnaki. So I would suggest that since there was no hands up, that he starts the discussion for us. So, Raspala, we've heard from all the four sources. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yes, my elder, give thanks, man. Blessed family and everyone at large. Yeah, me, what I can say, my elder, is simple. Is that it's just plagiarism what we are dealing with here. But unfortunately, I don't know whether we can call it plagiarism if another black man plagiarizes another black man ideology. Because when we heard Ruto, and I just heard again that video of Kwame Nkrumah, the Honorable Kwame Nkrumah, then I realized something, which is the speech of Kwame Nkrumah comes with solutions of the African problems. And then that speech of Ruto is like a rhetoric. It's like you are telling us what needs to be done and said, etc. But you're not giving us the solution. Like, let me make one example. Nkrumah is saying there, we must build African central banks and we must fix our foreign policies, which is with the people outside of Africa. We don't hear presidents like these presidents of Africa, that AU, talking about things like that. Two, we don't hear the issue of borderless Africa, which is the issue the EFF of South Africa had, but they dropped it. I don't know. They had an ideological change, or I don't know. So those are the critical things I look at, or I try to hear whenever a so-called lead of Africa makes a speech. And then what really bothers me is this issue of Paul Kagame and Ruto. Like, how can Ruto say Paul Kagame is a good leader, but he just slaughtered people here in Goma, in Eastern Congo? So, hey, it's complex. But what I know is one thing, that it is the AES that is the solution of Africa. That's why it's not getting a lot of coverage. That's why mass media is not, even the algorithms, when you search for AES on Google or YouTube, they will show you other things that you must be more specific for you to go to, for them to show you that AES you're looking for in the search engine. So that already tells you, they are just trying to hide anything AES from the mainstream, because that is where this information needs to go to ultimately. It needs to go to the average black person who is in the rural area, who is in the streets, to know that, no, we have these things such as AES, and there's progress now in Africa, get ready. Also, we have that fight, information warfare, it's called. We have that fight now that is going on. So let me end it here for now. So my main point, what I take from this issue is that we are dealing with the issue of plagiarism, revisionism, you see, just delaying us as Africans so that we can be delayed and believe that AU is going to free us, delay us up until 2027 reaches, up until 2030 reaches, and then it's too late to act. So the best way is just to follow the principles of AES. Thank you.
So, Brother Raspala, before we'll move on to the next speaker, but can I just get something clear from you? You were saying that Nkrumah put on the table the solutions: African Central Bank, an African military, an African common market, an African single currency, continental planning, eliminate colonial strongholds, for single constitution and parliament, United States of Africa. You're saying Nkrumah basically put forward the solutions, and all we have had so far are dilly-dallying, wasting the time of the continent on useless things. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that insight and sharing. So again, there are no hands up, so I don't know who wants to speak. But I don't want anyone to accuse me of not letting them speak and how they wanted to speak, and I didn't give them enough time. So please, if you want to speak, raise your hand. Of course, we all have a right to speak. We would like everyone to speak. Yeah. And we've set aside enough time to speak. We've got almost over an hour. So we want everyone to speak. So please raise your hand if you want to speak so you can speak. Brother Sam, just so you know, during our Thursday meetings, we don't raise hands because we hear from everyone. The reason being that you are sharing your thinking. So we go from person to person. So in our Thursday meetings, there's no need to raise your hand because the whole point of the Thursday meetings is that we hear about your thinking. But when we are dealing with the political and economic and communication and unification and liberation issues like we're doing today, not everyone wants to speak. So it's hard to, but so if you want to speak, raise your hand. If nobody wants to speak, then we all just go home. We close the meeting and then we all go home if nobody wants to speak. I think that is fair, don't you think? So Brother Sam's hand is up. Brother Sam, let's hear what you have to say. Thank
you. Thank you, brothers and sisters. And I want to latch immediately on especially the part where the first speakers talked about the two leaders, Kagame and Ruto. I wanted to ask initially to say, how were they chosen to champion this aspect for Africa, given the history and the circumstances in both their countries? But I missed the first speech of Ruto. I found it in the middle. I feel just like my brother that the two speeches of Nkrumah and Ruto are almost identical. But like him, I feel Nkrumah, basically what I want to say, my input is, I believe Nkrumah had laid down a blueprint. The only missed opportunities, and I don't know why and how, is why Africa didn't implement what Nkrumah said. Because I believe had they implemented that, we shouldn't be talking of what we are talking about now. Maybe if things didn't go well, we would have revisited everything. But I think Nkrumah had laid down a perfect, not perfect, maybe something that would really have brought the solution that Africa needed. And if I look the situation even there, I think the issue is political will is doubtful always. I am not sure exactly why the Nkrumah blueprint failed, but everything that I have seen, I had the opportunity to be at the African Union between when the transition was made between OAU and the AU. And remember, at that time, South Africa was almost like the champion then. And, all these aspects that Ruto is explaining, establishing working teams, and this is exactly how the transition between the OAU and AU was done. But I think the crux of the matter that I want to really put is the willpower. And when I say the political willpower is something that I want to hinge on the fact that most of the African countries did not move completely away from, they got independence, but they never really broke away from the colonial masters completely. And in some way, the colonial master remained fitted to the continent and controlling certain aspects of the continent. And therefore, we cannot push in one direction together. This is the only thing I have seen. During the transition of African unity, members are aware that even the headquarters, the AU a new headquarters was built with all the gadgets that you need, the computers and everything there. And at that stage, we had President Gaddafi, who was willing to really pump all the monies into the AU just to champion this thing. But the willpower, and as I say, I think the interference of the former colonial masters has always kept us away from each other. And I think lastly, my input is that our Sahel brothers are doing a great job in a very short space of time. The only problem with them is that they came into power the way they came into power, and the African Union and the OAU in the past always had this problem that anybody that comes into power in that manner is really not given a chance in Africa. So they are already stifled, that other members, especially the Western ECOWAS people, have completely isolated them or see them as opposing force. So already they are in a group that is 3 isolated from almost the rest, because even our other members, even if they are not ECOWAS, all other African states believe on this thing of no coup d'etat and no interference into a member state's affairs. So already those 3 countries will struggle really to survive if they are surrounded by people who see them first as illegitimate governments. Thank you.
Yeah, Brother Sam, before you go, you've raised a lot of issues. Thank you. But I am confused on your presentation. So what are you saying? Brother Raspala is saying that what Nkrumah said was very clear, gave his solutions. Until date, the Africa has not implemented them. And we have an African Union that is in place today. And it's not talking about doing the things Nkrumah said should be done. And you are saying they said the same thing. So I'm confused. What are you saying Ruto is doing today, or the AU has done today, that comes close to implementing what Nkrumah said?
I'm not saying it came close to what Nkrumah said. I said they have a lot of similarities.
In what way? Hold on. That's my point. According to Raspala, there is no similarity. One is saying here are the solutions, implement them. The other is just talking. So how are they similar?
As I said, I didn't get the first part of Ruto, but right. I can remember, especially I heard the part where he emphasizes that, you know what has been the challenge of the OAU, and I think even immediately when you came into the transition of the AU, was always funding. And I think I heard Ruto say they must establish this financial muscle that he was talking about that will finance all these programs. And I think he also came with commissions or whatever that have already been there, even in the OAU, even in the AU. And I think even in Kwame Nkrumah, he was saying there should be these committees of experts that are chairing whatever faculties that the unions are having. So in a way,
Sam,
hello?
Yourself have just told us that Gaddafi was prepared to put the money behind the transformation. And then what happened? So if the problem was money, Gaddafi was prepared to put money in. He went as far as saying, let's set up a central bank. He will put the dollar reserves of Libya behind the project. He proposed a dinari, and he said he was prepared to. So the problem is not money, Brother Sam. Don't you think? Is the problem really money?
No, it's not money. And I think I identify the challenge as being the lack of total political will from most of the leaders, especially those that still hold, I don't know, that still have links with the former colonial powers. You know,
sorry, but Sam, let me push you a little bit. Sorry, but if you have a leader who is more interested in having sex with 1,000 women and recording it, I mean, Then you find the neo-colonialists, yes, they have their role to play. They're also a problem. But you have African leaders who are more interested in recording themselves, having sex with 1,000 women, you know, and so how is such a person really interested in the kind of things we are talking about?
I think this is exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying they are leaders that you know, if you take a Thabo Mbeki, I believe he had that notion that Africa must be independent, Africa must be strong. And that is why I started by saying I questioned how Ruto and Kagame were placed to champion this. But even Thabo Mbeki, with all that, in South Africa, they didn't.
Brother Sam, sorry to interrupt. Let me just hold on there. How did Ruto and Kagame hold the role? Let's solve that problem now. Then you can continue. One.
Sorry.
Let me tell you how they came to be where they are, and then we can move on.
Okay.
The selection of President William Ruto and President Paul Kagame as champions for the African Union reforms involved the fact that President William Ruto is the AU champion for institutional reform. How was he appointed? He was appointed by the Assembly of the African Union Heads of State and Government during their meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 2024. So that's how he was appointed, because you asked. And as a new AU champion for institutional reform, that's the name for the role, he is tasked with providing political leadership and vision to complete the comprehensive institutional reform initiative, which began in 2016. His predecessor, as you acknowledged, and as he himself acknowledged, is President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and he previously held this position. How was he appointed? Well, Kagame was also appointed by the AU Assembly, likely through a similar consensus or decision-making process as Ruto. And his tenure as the AU chairman for institutional reform was marked, we are told, by significant reforms aimed at making the AU more efficient and effective. So under Kagame's leadership, key reforms included restructuring the AU Commission, including reducing the bureaucracy and enhancing financial autonomy. And as we all know, he has been succeeded by Ruto in February 2024. So the general selection process for AU leadership roles are as follows. Assembly decisions. Major leadership roles within the AU, such as the chairperson of the African Union Commission and other senior positions, they are typically decided by the Assembly Heads of State and Government through consensus of voting. And they have regional rotation. So positions like the chairperson of the African Union rotate among the continent's 5 regions to ensure equitable representation. In terms of merit-based selection, for senior leadership positions, the AU emphasizes merit-based selection, gender parity, and regional representation. And one of which is, as we know, you must have a PhD in this. And our own brother Pidgin has challenged that. Why must some roles have PhDs? Then they are basically excluding those without PhDs and so on. So, Brother Sam, that is how President Ruto was appointed. Thank you. You can now proceed.
Yeah, no, thanks. I think it helps because I thought maybe there were some specialties that they had shown to be having, that they can champion this. But I was talking about the fact that, you know, with Ruto personally, I was disappointed by how he ruled Kenya when he took over, you know, and I always go back to the time when there were riots in Kenya and the former President Uhuru had to unite with all the warring groups. And that breakfast where they came together, which was a spectacle to behold. And then when Ruto came into power, we went back almost the same direction with the same leaders, including Raila. So that's why I said I was wondering how he was chosen. And in Kagame is the same thing. And you see this element in Kagame about a man who stays in power even longer than the normal constitutional imperatives of the country. So that's why I was questioning that aspect. But my bottom line,
Brother Sam, let's clarify. Brother Kagame is the constitutional president. The constitution of Rwanda was whether it was altered or not, he is there constitutionally. So just let's make that clear. Thank you. Continue.
I'm glad that you are aware that he has been in power for some number of years now.
Constitutionally.
Yes, it's fine. My bottom line, I think I want to rest, is that there's no political will in Africa. And that's why we have failed. With Gaddafi's money, with the will, if it was there, we should have got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Tapua, you had your hand up, then I'll come to Brother Glenroy. Sister Tapua?
Yes. Thank you very much.
According to Brother Sam, there is no political will. Please do your own, share your own thoughts. If you can also share a bit on that, that would be great. Thank you. Continue.
Right. My position is Africa is as it is today because we don't have a singular focus. Because taking into consideration where Kwame Nkrumah was and taking the development towards that goal, it's almost like Kwame Nkrumah is a historical figure of ages past. We should have been directed as Africans and as the African continent by the position that he took. And we should continue to refer to the aspirations that were expounded during the first meeting then. Because if we do that, if every country does that, then we don't lose focus. Because I'm thinking right here of Namibia, which is one of the only countries that sings its national anthem and the AU anthem at the same time. So what we have is a situation where African countries that were established by colonialists are behaving according to the boundaries that were effected by the colonialists. And because of that, our behavior reflects our masters. Because the French Africans do not get along with the British Africans or the Portuguese Africans. Yes.
Be mindful of the word masters. Some of our brothers here don't like the word. They are not our masters.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they are thieves.
No, I meant masters in quotation marks because they're not my master either.
I'm saying our brothers, some of our brothers here don't like that terminology. Right. They are not our masters. Sorry.
They are slave invaders.
Yeah, but Satapua, continue. Sorry, Brother the King?
Slave invaders. They are invaders.
Yeah, Sister Poa, please continue. Thank you.
Yes. So what I'm saying is our way forward has to do with disregarding the borders. Because if I listened to Kagame's speech when he was referring to South Africa's involvement in the Congo, and I just went, here we go again. Because none of the leaders is acknowledging that the boundaries that we have are a source of conflict. And if we always remember Nkrumah's position, it will help us to remember where we're coming from in order to know where we're going. But at the moment, we're so entrenched in the sovereignty of the states that were imposed on us, and they are our Hercules heel. So my position is, as long as, especially taking into consideration the lessons that we've learned in the Thursday class, that for every position, there's a counter position, there's dialectics. We need to be holding that torch that reminds everybody, every country, every leader, that this is where we ought to be going, because they seem to forget. And then I also have, I think it's a challenge that I have. You've got the Sahel leaders who are taking us in the right direction, but we are worried about the fact that they're not democratically elected. But we know that the democratic processes that we have in Africa are rigged. So what are we saying? I'm torn between accepting somebody who will come up and tell us where to go at the expense of democracy, because the democracy, for example, that we've experienced in Zimbabwe is non-democratic at all, and it's causing confusion in Mozambique. And we're beginning to influence people to just not respect the democratic process. So that leaves me at a quandary as to exactly what we should do. But my point is, we need to remember where we're coming from, continue talking as one. Each leader is supposed to take the baton and run with it, acknowledge the races that have been run before, so that we continue to focus on races that are coming ahead of us. In Zimbabwe, for example, with the political situation that we have, we've got a group of ex-combatants who are beginning to say, why did we go to war? Where are we now in respect of the reasons why we went to war? We need to be talking like that. We fought for our independence as African countries. Where are we now in terms of taking our people towards that goal of being truly independent? The Pan-Africanist is the way, and therefore everyone, every government that comes in, I almost feel like they should swear that they're going to take us to be one country, to disregard all these borders, to work towards being our people. But very few of them, SADC, they hardly talk about it. It's not even known, and people don't know. So we need to be making sure we educate people. We continue to talk about, we raise the flag and remind people that this is where our solution lies. I think I'll end there for now.
Thank you, Satapoa. You've raised a lot of issues. But can I ask you a last question before we go to Brother Glenroy?
Yes.
So all you've said, how does that relate to our topic today? I should have asked the same question to our two previous speakers, although they answered it indirectly.
For me, the way we should work towards united. Sorry.
So in terms of the strengthening of the AU, what is your what do you have to say about that?
I take it as a project management issue, where if we say we started this project with Nkrumah, where are we for each one of these? So that anyone who's coming into office has to have a clear mark about where we're going with each one of the things that have been raised, the points that have been raised. Because once we do that and we know how far each leader has gone, each one of them has a challenge to make sure that...
Yes. So sorry to interject. They haven't done anything. So they haven't done anything. So we know that. But Brother Raspalas, he spoke fast. He made it clear. They are just wasting our time. So how do you think we can strengthen the AU? I'll ask you again.
Right. By being a strong opposition, we've got to make sure we hold them accountable. We've got to make sure we hold them accountable by doing the basics, because once the people are convinced at the grassroots level that this is where we should go, the leaders will respond, because they're taking advantage of the fact that the ordinary person in the street is not well informed, and they're so focused on just putting bread on their tables, they don't want to know about the African Union. But if it is put in a palatable way, in a way that they understand brings solutions to our problems, then we can make progress. So my suggestion is, as a group, we need to be working at a grassroots level to make sure that the African Union knows that we are working with the people. We've got to put in place structures that inform people at every stage. For me, when I look at the colonial project, what the colonialists did when they got to the village, like Chinua Achebe said, take the children, educate the children in their ways. We also need to take our children and let them know what the solution that was proposed is, so that they are able to take the baton and move with it. Because nobody talks to them about it. I mean, if you go into schools in Zimbabwe, they won't even know that we've got national, an AU anthem or anything like that, hardly. So where are we going? We need to make sure that we're educating ourselves and our people, and we're raising the flag at any opportunity in order for people to raise awareness. Because once people want it, the politicians will act. They want the vote.
Okay, thank you very much, Sotapua. Brother Glenroy.
Greetings.
Greetings.
I want to sort of go back to Kwame's speech, Yasafor, or Sajofor's speech around unification. It's all very well 20, 30 years later to say, oh, I didn't understand. But the reality is that there is no analysis taking place during that time to really understand the position of so-called leaders in relation to their kowtowing to imperialists. And people keep bringing up former colonial control. So what I'm hearing, and we're hearing it still now, is there is no real analysis to say out of 54, 55 leaders, these 3 are over there, these 2 are over there, the rest of them are over there. And so that the general public, African public, both in the continent and on the diaspora, can say, who can they depend on? And indeed, who, when they interact with leaders in the African Union, what can they expect? There is no analysis of that. You gave an eloquent explanation about why Ruto is the head of the AU, and you're correct in the sense of it's a rotatory position. But it being rotatory meant that we should know what to expect when a particular person is rotating into that seat, if we are prepared, and if we have done the analysis, and if we have a charter of, well, who's the next person after Ruto to rotate in it? Will he seek to undo some of the that Ruto has done, or will it just be business as usual? And don't say that they're constrained in that position. The reality is that what we expect of African leaders is to lead. But we know some of them will not. Some of them are not there for that. But who are they? Has anybody done a running order? A list, so that we can say? Because it's a very precarious position to talk about a continental unity when we don't know who the players are or what their intentions are. It just seems to me that we are, what is the word, not taking the matter seriously, because if we were, and if we are serious about unification with the people who are currently in position, we would have some clear understanding. And it's clear that in Osajofo's time, that analysis wasn't done.
Sorry, what analysis wasn't done, brother Glenroy?
An actual analysis of the position of all the heads of state then, the people fighting for liberation then, because not all countries were obviously so-called independent. So what I am saying is we need a running
brother
order.
Glenroy. Sorry, brother. What's your evidence for that it wasn't done?
Because the Monrovia group were able to do what they did without any sort of prior intelligence report. Or maybe I'm getting the Monrovia. I think it's the Monrovia group, the group that wanted much slower. Monrovia, thank you, General. the Monrovia group who wanted much slower progress. I mentioned somebody who said 30 years later, oh, I didn't understand Osagyefo position and he was right. Well, whoopee for him. The point is that did the grouping that wanted earlier and quicker unification had any analysis about the opposition they will face?
Yeah,
And
Brother
here we
Glenroy,
are now
Brother Glenroy,
in
I'm
the
asking.
let me land,
Yeah, hold on, hold on,
comrade.
hold on. I'll
Here
let you
we
finish.
are now,
Brother Glenroy, hold
currently
on,
in the
hold on.
African Union. Can I land, please? We're
No,
now here in the
don't land
African
yet. I
Union
don't want you
now,
to land yet.
and I don't believe that analysis has worked. Somebody, please put up a chart that shows me where all of the African leaders are about things like unification, things like the sixth region, things like Africans coming home, things like borderless Africa,
Yeah, Brother
an
Glenroy, hold
African
on. Don't
passport.
land yet. Hold on. Don't land yet. 'Cause I
Yeah,
don't want
I'll
you to
land
land.
now. I'll
No,
even
don't
do an
land. Don't land.
emergency landing just for
Don't
you.
land. You see, the reason I ask you this question is that you are you are basically making a historical point, and it's a valid one. But I don't think you have the evidence that says that those who were fighting for unification of a continent at the time did not do any analysis or did not have an understanding of the different forces. So, for example, in Nkrumah's book, which you are aware of, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, written in 1969, it was very clear there in that book. They talked about liberated zones, zones under enemy control, contested zones, additional and other additional zones have been proposed by scholars. So to say that they didn't have an understanding of the various zones, which was already in the handbook, I mean, it's historically incorrect. But I think the point you are making is a valid one, which is that. So for us today, whatever Nkrumah did at the time, both in the handbook and in Consensus itself, where it talks about liberated zones clearly in chapter 5, and what positive forces must do, I think your point is valid, that we today must update those zones and be clear as to what the zones are, and then which leader is for what. I mean, in our past discussions, like Laura, we have said that since I mean the Alliance of Sahel, they only came up recently, didn't they? Before they came up, which African leader was for unification or liberation or development? They are either liberals or conservatives. So the entire continent was under enemy control. The entire continent was under enemy control. Anyway, so I just thought I will raise those issues. Please land so we can go to Brother Kweku. Thank you.
No, I'll, in view of time, let me allow others to come in. The reality is that I'm still asking anyone out there with a list, even a partial list, it doesn't have to be a complete list. When we engage politically, we know where people are on the right and people are on the left. So we have some sort of preparatory situation. I once heard recently there were 3 types of Pan-Africanism, and I just found that astounding. But that was to incorporate or allow for those who are only politically in the game of Pan-Africanism. So I just really want to know. We can pick on people who are publicly in absurd position. Ruto, what is doing in Kenya? What is the person who in Amazonia or in Cameroon and people like those? We can, criticize and lay people out. And then we can also do the thing as people have done here about the Sahel. Great, easy picking. There they are. They're making a more progressive move than everybody else. But what are the other people who are going to be problematic, who are going to rotate to the head of the African Union and be able to do real damages? So we need to be analytical. And I don't get that. I think we need to do that. I'm not obfuscating my responsibility to be part of that work, and it needs to be done.
Yeah. So but
I'll land there.
Right? I
land
agree
there.
with you. I think the meeting will agree with you that we need to do a modern. Brother Pigeon, make a note of that. We have a lot of Pan-African groups. We are in touch with them. We've discussed how we can work together. Maybe what Brother Glenroy has mentioned is something we can look at, because as we all agree, we are not working together. Remember, meeting, when Brother Glenroy makes a point and validly about the fact that we're not doing this work today, he's referring to us. And what are we? We are civil society. We are not in government. We are not in the legal service. We are not the judiciary. We are not the legislature. We are just ordinary Africans running an online civil society group. We don't have funds. We don't have power. We don't have anything. And there are volunteers. So there is work that needs to be done, and it needs to be done. Something we need to discuss, as Brother Glenroy has made it clear. And so on the screen is Brother Pigeon sharing with us how Nkrumah map things, partly, how Brother Glenroy for reminding us that we need to do this Saturday meeting needs to do more analysis, and that's the message from our own Brother Glenroy. Let's go to Brother Kweku, whose hand is also up. In terms of hands up, let's see who's Brother Kweku's hand is up. Nobody's else hand is up.
Yes.
Good
evening. Good evening, folks. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to raise a few issues.
Brother Kweku, good evening, good night, and good morning, good afternoon. People are in different times.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I just want to raise a few issues. The first one is that I think Africa's situation, for me,
Brother Kweku,
Yes.
before you continue, remember the theme today is strengthening the African Union.
Absolutely, no problem. Okay, thank you. So, but yes, I think my issues are still relevant, and I'll dovetail them into the theme. The situation is even more embarrassing for me because all the problems and the solutions that Nkrumah enumerates were raised by Marcus Garvey in probably the late 19th century, and then even before him by Edward Blyden. Practically the same issues, and they provided a blueprint as well. But somehow we ignore them. I think it would be wrong to say that the leaders of Africa do not know these problems and do not understand these problems. So there must be some issues that are stopping them from being able to take action to resolve them. Now, chief among those issues, I think, is the fact that I think we are oversimplifying the issues. The covert operations by our detractors are real. When you read a book like The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he tells you clearly that our leaders are being threatened. They are not basically, they're scared for their lives, okay? Because if they come to you and they try to control you and your economic policies and you don't agree, the solution for them is to eliminate you, either physically or you lose power. Now, these are real and they are documented. So some of our leaders we are seeing today, they seem so weak, and I dare say feminine, because quietly they are being given the carrot and stick treatment. Okay, so although they may start out speaking vehemently against the status quo, after a while they are forced into line by the powers that be. So what people are saying today, like, I mean, I used to admire President Ruto. I heard him speak before he became president, when he just became president. But what I'm seeing today, for me, it smells and smacks of that controlling hand that is manipulating our leaders. Now, the issue I want to raise about this is the fact that we think we elect our leaders. I don't think we do. Before these politicians get to the presidency level, they are courted and groomed by the powers that be. They develop relationships with all sorts of people within the foreign community ecosystem. They have all these links, and they are supported by these forces, you know, in their bid to become president.
Kweku, what are you telling us?
I'm telling you that our people, number one, are not independent thinkers. They are being controlled.
Which people? They being the presidents.
The president, as some of our presidents. Okay, I don't want to mention.
So are the AES military leaders being controlled as well?
Pardon me.
Are the AES leaders, the Alliance of Health States, are they also now being controlled?
So you can see the difference now. You can see the difference now when they are independent thinking. You can see the difference between them and the one who sat with the American Foreign Secretary and reported them. There's a big difference. This is the point I'm making. So we might think that we are selecting our people, but until the people, the broad masses, support our leaders and the agenda, so that it doesn't matter who is there, but the people insist on the agenda, they can control the individuals, but you can't control 54 million people. You can't. So we need to, I want us to think about that. The AU, again, is controlled by these stooges. The AU is controlled by the stooges. So unless we find a way to actually control our own agenda, then we'll be stuck in this quagmire. We know the problems, we have the blueprint for solution, but nothing will get done. Thank you.
Quickly, thank you very much for your presentation. So tell us about the AU, how to strengthen the AU then.
I'll tell you two things. I want the sixth region, that is the diaspora, to be given a lot of power. Why? Because they can speak truth to power. They don't have any fear. They can speak truth to power. They can deal with African presidents who are stooges. They can speak to them. Okay, so but right now you can see that the integration of the sixth region into the AU is slow, it's touch and go. For I suspect for this very reason. Okay, because the leaders in Africa pleading sovereignty and all that do not allow us to speak regarding their issues. These people from the diaspora can actually tackle. Some of the scholars out there have read and heard speak are very courageous and very direct. We should encourage them to take center stage and then de-emphasize our own politicians.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you for that. Brother Carrington, you've heard him, yeah? Brother Carrington. Brother Glenroy, I know you're not in Zanzibar, but you're also in part of the diaspora. Brother Coco, Sister Foa, you were part of us. We know you're not in Zimbabwe, but so guys, Brother Kweku is saying that we can speak truth to power. So basically, we should stop sleeping and do more. Anyway, thank you, Brother Kweku. Right now, no other hands are up. The time is 7:42. So if nobody else wants to speak, let's bring the meeting to a close. Unless somebody else wants to speak. Yes, Sister Ida. Sister Ida is the brains behind our Saturday sessions.
Please. No, I think there's two things that I've heard tonight, which I find. I think Brother Sam said something about the Sahel leaders. I think he implied that because they come through coups, there was something a bit dodgy, or that they wouldn't last. But then the number of African leaders who have come through coups and who have been on the AU and been there for a long time, we should also perhaps take note of. But whether
Museveni,
all of them. I mean, look, even Ghana's the amount of Ghanaian heads of states who have come through coups and then probably been on the AU, or at least sent their people to the AU. So I think that the difference maybe is that the Sahel states aren't prepared. You know, they're prepared to kick everybody out, whether it's African, European, whatever. If you're not in the right and you don't look like you're going in the way that will help Africa, you know, get off our backs, because we'll go our own way. And Africans have really appreciated that. I think there's another thing that was said. I think it was Brother Kweku, but I'm not quite sure. I can put my finger on it at the moment. But the thing that's happened this week that has really surprised me is that there have been elections for people in the diaspora to get on the AU. And then when it came to the elections, it was like, oh my goodness, you know, this, we should ask brother Coco, because he will probably even know more than I know. But they've been very dodgy elections. And then the people who've run the elections have been the people who are standing for themselves, who've got the most. It's very, very weird. And suddenly people who weren't about can vote. Suddenly all the people who struggled to get through on registration find that, oh, why did we bother? Because you could probably have voted without being registered. It's been very, very weird. So if that is a indication of what's going on in the AU, that I don't know that I can say it is. It might be just because there were meant to be something like 600 to a group, and maybe there were so few that it wouldn't have looked good if they got votes under maybe 50 or under 70. You know, people might just have looked and said, what sort of voting is this? Yeah, but the whole thing is very weird. And the AU definitely needs reform. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now on the question of voting, Brother Kweku has eloquently said that we in the diaspora should get involved. Brother Kweku, help us in the diaspora to get our vote. And Ghana has passed a law that says we here can vote. Up to now, you have not allowed us to vote. Why? Why won't you guys allow us to vote? Huh? Please, Kweku,
I'm talking
Kweku,
about
Brother Kweku, since you're on here with us, we would like you, on behalf of CSG, to take on this baton for us. Why wouldn't they let us vote? In the last election, that elected Mahama, we could not vote, and yet we legally are required to vote. You are robbing us of our vote. You are meant to be our own brothers and sisters. Come on, guys.
If Brother Kweku is a Ghanaian politician, let me have my say as well.
He's not a politician.
No, I'm not.
But
I'm not. But I have very strong opinions.
Okay.
If I may interject briefly, please. Listen, I'm not talking about just the continental African diaspora. I'm talking about the universal African diaspora. Okay? The AU has decided that they are the 6th region and they should be made effective as a region. And I'm insisting that they can speak truth to power because they have no links to any individual country.
We agree.
In fact, I think the AU should be granting them their status instead of saying Ghana giving them, citizenship and all that. The AU mechanism should give them their citizenship to Africa.
We agree.
So that they can have access to any country. That way, they cannot be bullied by any president because they want citizenship.
Kweku, as far as I'm concerned, you said that magic word, Ghana giving people citizenship. It's come up for the last 3 weeks. So I'm glad you brought it up again because one day we will have a discussion on this. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So
well,
I think
we hear you. Please, we want to vote too. We also want to vote.
Yes,
it's our right.
Yes. That's also part of it. That's all part of it. That's all part of it. But it's a bigger agenda for the AU. Since
we
the theme
accept
is
that
AU.
agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Thank you
please,
very much.
Please give us our vote.
All right. Thank you.
And stop making strangers citizens.
Okay. Yes. I agree.
We've got 12 minutes left, and now we have 6 hands up. Come on, guys. Why did you wait for so long? You could have raised your hand so we can. Anyway, I'll pick those who haven't spoken yet, and then we will hear those who have spoken already. So the first person who hasn't spoken yet, let me ask the sister to speak. Brothers, I hope you don't mind. Ladies first. Sister Myra.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. So
what I would say is, because of the time, let's be short, so everyone can speak. Yeah, thank you.
So, sorry, just to clarify, the question is, how do we strengthen the AU?
Yes.
Is that the question? Okay, I just want to make sure I stay on point. So for me personally, my opinion is that strengthening the AU as it is now is like throwing fuel on fire, because all we're doing is strengthening the real employers of the people like Ruto, who are the invaders. Conservatism teaches us that we don't need reforms, we need revolution. I like what Elder Glenroy said. He was questioning about action. I think we the liberators, as we are here, Pan-Africanists, we have to be the change that we want to see and start forming movements, to start building institutes and programs that we want to see. But waiting for the invader supported institutions on the continent is not going to answer our question and get us where we want. Thank you very much.
Yes, Tamara, we didn't say, he has not said that we should strengthen the invader-supported AU. All we said is strengthen the AU. And if you think a revolutionized AU is the solution, then what you are saying is that we should strengthen the AU by a new revolutionary AU. And that's still in line with our theme. Thank you. Now let's have, thank you. The hands up have gone down. So now I can't see whose hand is up. Oh, they are still up. So so brother Mafole hasn't spoken, and then I'll come to Brother Pigeon. Brother Mafole, you also shared some links with us. So please, quickly, and so others can speak. Thank you, Brother Mafole, and welcome to our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And good evening, brothers and sisters. I have shared my views on the chat, but I just wanted to comment that reforms are indeed necessary, but there are prerequisites for making those reforms effective. We need to deal with our own behavior, our own human behavior, how we make decisions. And until we do that, nothing is going to help us. Dealing with constitutions, dealing with structures, systems is not going to help us, because it's going to be the same people who, as others have said, are hardwired for coloniality. And until we take that very seriously, we shall be debating this for decades. That's all I need to say about. Brother Kweku, please share your context with me. Please. Thank you.
No, thank you for that, Brother Mafole. Brother Kweku, share your contact with Brother Mafole because we
How do
want
I do that?
just
How
put
do
it
I
in the
do
chat.
that?
Put it in the chat so you can pick it. But
Just put it on
also
the
put
chat
yours
and
in the
pick it
chat
up.
so he can also pick it.
Okay,
And
okay.
and Brother Quick, just so you know, Brother Mafole, yourself and myself will have a chat, separate chat.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
but can I address something quickly that Brother Quick said, which I don't agree with? Or let me put it this way: it's historically incorrect. Edward Blyden and Marcus Garvey did not say anything about an African currency. So please, it's wrong. It's not true to say that Edward Blyden and Marcus Garvey put the blueprint down in terms of how Nkrumah put it. Yes, they said what they said in terms of, for example, Marcus Garvey, as you know, he wanted new African nations, an African government in place, self-reliance and all that. But he didn't say anything about African currency, but Brother Quick. No, what Blyden says about African currency. I'm just picking that one to say that. Therefore, to say that they put the blueprint down, which was what Nkrumah basically rehashed, is not correct.
I think it's a very wrong. I think it's a very unfair statement. You cannot because they lived in different eras. Okay, there are different eras.
I
At
accept
the time they identified the
I
problem.
accept that.
I'm just saying that
I'm
the
not.
problems were identified before. I'm not being specific. I could go deeper if you want.
Yeah,
but
we're happy to go deeper another time. But I just want to
absolutely.
I'll clear the history today to say that it's not. Yeah.
So they did identify the problem. They did. That one we can discuss that later, but they did.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And Brother Quick, we know that Nkrumah was a Garveyite, so he was inspired by Garvey.
So I'm not saying anything different. But I'm just saying
but you went further. You were saying that all the things Nkrumah said, they said it, and that's not true.
I'm saying that the problems had been identified. That's what I said. The problems and the blueprints had been provided.
Okay. Yeah.
As far back as late 19th century.
Yeah, the blueprint.
So that even makes that problem worse. Yeah? Because that's even more embarrassing for me.
Yeah. We'll be pleased to hear a presentation from you at some point. Yeah. So who has this? Brother Carrington, you haven't. Brother Quick, thank you so much. Brother Carrington.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just very quickly, I am very interested in the Pan-African Parliament and mechanisms for direct election of these members of parliament and its integration within.
Sorry, Brother Carrington, can you just hold on? Brother Quick, just so you know, Brother Mafole has shared his contact. If you pick it from there in the chat, I don't know if you can see, pick it in the chat and then share yours. Yeah, thank you. Yes, sorry, Brother Carrington, continue.
Yes, I was talking about direct election of of the Pan-African Parliament, which is a separate structure from the African Union, by the way, and its integration within the African Union structure. This is important so that these MPs are not accountable to their specific political parties, they are accountable directly to specific Africans in specific regions. That is an important point. Second, direct elections of the AU chair. Right now, the AU chair is elected by the presidents, and you cannot have candidacy before the support of your local sort of president. That is a problem. It means that you have to be in the same political direction or alignment with your local president for you to be the AU chair, which is deeply problematic. And in any case, you represent the interests of the person who has seconded your candidacy. This is a problem, I think, that has been discussed extensively. We just need to talk about what pressure we are going to do, what pressure we are going to apply to the AU to change this, whether they will select a specific number of Africans, let's say 100,000 adjusted for population, to carry out the election so that this AU chair is again accountable to Africans rather than to politicians. Something that we need to go in, I think we need to go into a little bit deeper, is that regional organizations are becoming much stronger than the African Union. And this is a problem that I think CSG has discussed a little bit, mentioned a little bit during my presence, but not gone into deeply. So we are celebrating the alliance of Sahelian states. Yes, this is worth celebrating, but it means it's another group of African countries who can overrule collective decisions of the African Union, just like the EAC and SADC are currently in a tussle over the problem in Congo. This is as these countries become more powerful and these regional blocks become more coherent, this problem is not going to go away and can be responsible for very huge regional disasters in the African continent. So that also needs to be discussed. Thank you.
Okay, we've only got 3 minutes left, and the only hand up is Brother Glenn Royce. So, Brother Glenn Roy,
Yeah, I'll be quick. I raised the issue last week, I think, about the lack of reference in the 2063 in regard to the diaspora. So no one should be surprised that the elections were a dog's breakfast. We also suffer in the issue of people who have 1 foot on the continent and 1 foot in the diaspora. Believe somehow they can't make a decision of where to be, and are seeking to be involved in voting in both sections. It reminds me of the South African Afrikaans attack on the British, calling them salt prick, i.e. 1 foot in South Africa and 1 foot in Europe, and they're not in the water. I'm sorry for anybody with delicate feelings about that, but it's appropriate that we actually have a situation where if we are going to have a 6th region, those people living in the 6th region, I am not living in the 6th region, are the ones that are participating in the election. I'll land there to give Tapu a chance to say what she has to say.
Yeah, no, thank you. Brother Coco, we need to talk about what happened, yeah? Maybe
Very
not
good.
Yeah, get in touch with the Coco so we can have a chat. The time is 1 minute to 8. Sister Poazan is up. Let's listen to her, and then Brother Pigeon will bring the meeting to a close and then make the announcements. Sister Poa, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think I'm following on Elder Glenn Roy's position. I've lived both in Europe and Africa, and I'm currently trying to transition from Europe to Africa, and I'm finding it challenging. I'm born African, just migrated for a while, and I'm coming back. And I find that politicians in this part of the world use anyone who has any association with the West as potentially someone who's coming to infiltrate and is used by the former colonialists. And it's so difficult to be heard because you will now have that badge that anyone can point to and say, oh, this is where she's coming from, this is what she's likely to be in, and so on. So it's really, really difficult because you got all these ideas, you think you know what needs to be done, but there's always suspicion, and politicians use that suspicion to kind of augment their own position and be biased against you because you've traveled the world. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yes, Sister Poa, you're not alone. Yeah, I have a Ghanaian name. But I have a Ghanaian passport. Yeah, but in Ghana, I am a foreigner. they call me Ubruni. Yeah. Anyway, Brother Pigeon, please come in and with the announcement so that we can end the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, comrade. So it's been sometimes very interesting to just listen. I've had a lot of thoughts, of course, having presented before. One, I think that to my proposal is that now that President Ruto is the head of reforms or institutional reforms, and we are talking about strengthening African Union authority, I propose, if it will be of the goodwill of the team, that we actually cite and write a letter to President Ruto in recommendation to what reforms we want, but refer that reforms to what Nkrumah says in his speech. If we can be able to cut part of this speech of what Nkrumah proposed on what should be done, should be just whatever we send to President Ruto in regards to what should be done, instead of him trying to recreate things that are not working. I know he might have accessed this speech, but I think we need to do a letter to him, a set of research, but refer him back to what was said before. Secondly,
Hold on, Brother Pigeon. I think that letter is in order. Anybody here who would like their names appended to the letter, please let Brother Pigeon know. So when we write it, we'll have names, not just one person's name, but several names underneath it. And Brother Pigeon, I propose you do a draft and share it in the WhatsApp group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, so we have to do our part to try to strengthen AU, and all we do is our part. Of course, the goodwill is of politicians. I want to be one. If God allow, maybe I'll have the goodwill to help everything else, but that's another story. So yes, thank you very much for your time, comrades. As I've said, it's always a pleasure and an honor for you to spend your data and your time to be with us here. You keep us going every day, and we actually appreciate you. The recordings of this week, that includes the recording of Thursday and Saturday, will be available by next week, and I'll share it for the purposes of review or references in case you missed something. Next Thursday, we continue the normal Thursday class where we read the Philosophy and Ideology by Kwame Nkrumah, and I request that we come in. We are at a point of renaissance, and we are discussing renaissance, and I think renaissance has been touched also as well in part of what's going on. So please join us on Thursday, actually 6 p.m. GMT. I do share the link for that. Of course, the last thing is that next Saturday we'll be talking about Pan-African Financial Institution. And all issues of funding has been raised here today. That the African Union, who funds it? Where does it get the funds? And people talk about funding. So next Saturday, our agenda is Pan-African Financial Institutions. We want to see what and how we can fund Pan-Africanism, and that goes beyond even to the AU, but funding Pan-African activities for the purpose of advancing the Pan-African work, because the West have their structures. What is our equivalent structures to fund Pan-Africanism? We are looking forward to that conversation. If you want to speak to something in regards to that, kindly get in touch with me in advance so that you can prepare some time for you to discuss in regards to that. Without taking much of your time, I want to appreciate you and say thank you as we bring this meeting to an end. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night, Friend Susanna.
Good night.